Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is day number 4. First of all, before we dive in, hopefully you might notice a humming sound. That's my portable air conditioner over my shoulder. So let me know if that just really drives you nuts. It's kind of hot and humid here in Northern Virginia, and unfortunately, living in an old house that doesn't have central air means that I've got to have other ways of cooling myself. So if that just sort of bugs you, well, I guess kind of too bad. No, not really. But if it really is like hard to hear me because of all that, then let me know and I can always turn that off. But anyway, you know, if you want to pop into the comments and tell us who you are and where you're from and where you're tuning in from, that would be awesome. You don't have to, but it's always kind of neat to see where people are tuning in. Yesterday we had somebody in the Netherlands, somebody in the UK, somebody in Canada, people from across the country here in the States. So really awesome to kind of see how many people kind of show up. So again, if you want to pop in and say hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from, that's really awesome. So just trying to keep things rolling. I think one of the biggest issues that I'm having, I mean, it's only the 4th day, but just sort of like trying to keep that momentum going and trying to do things that feel maybe a little bit new, a little bit different, not trying to do the same thing over and over again. But it is really interesting, though, to take an idea and explore it again and again and try different variations. So I don't know what's going to happen today. I really haven't given it this much thought, trying to just really be kind of in that moment of working in the journal, or not the journal, but working on the little piece of paper and seeing kind of where it goes. So, somebody tuning in today from New Zealand, so that's pretty cool. So anyway, yeah, I just really feel like it's pretty awesome just to kind of trust my gut, trust my intuition, kind of see where it goes. And it might be something that I absolutely love. It might be something that I just think is terrible. And if it does turn out not so great, not a big deal. Like I've said before, I've only spent a little bit of time on it, and it's not a big, huge piece of paper or a big canvas or whatever. So it doesn't hurt as bad, I guess. It's not as like, oh man, I totally messed that up. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and switch us over. So I've got my 4x4-inch piece of paper here, and really just not sure what I'm going to do. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way. I think I'm going to start off like I have done, and I'm using my watercolors here. This has a color that I really like. It's I forget the name of it, but it's kind of like a mustardy kind of yellowish golden color that I really like. And I just realized that it's very, very bright on the screen. Let me adjust that. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I've got it adjusted just right. All right. And it's a light golden color, so it's going to be kind of light anyway, but that just seemed pretty bright there. Alright, so I'm going to paint that down pretty quickly. But you know what? I want to give this some texture. And there's some different things I can do with the wet paint. But one of the easiest ways, I'm going to rinse my brush off. Let me pull my water cup in here. I'm just going to rinse off my water brush or my paintbrush a little bit, and I'm gonna flick just plain water. This is nothing special, just some plain water. And what happens is the water kind of dilutes the paint. It doesn't show up too well with this golden color, but if you have a darker color it can. But it's really probably hard to see in the live stream, but it has a bit more of a texture now, and before that kind of dissipates, I'm going to go ahead and dry it. So I want a bit more texture, so I think I'm gonna go in. This has a nice kind of sienna brown. Maybe do a little bit of flicking with the paintbrush. Just trying to bait. I think I'm going to leave that. Sometimes I like to smear it or paint over it, but let's go ahead and keep that. So I think I want to add a bit more texture. I'm going to pull out my Inktense pencils, and if you know me, you know I love my Inktense pencils. I love the water-soluble pencils. I have not used the Inktense blocks that much. I've used them a little bit and tried them out and different things, but I love the pencils. So this is a color. It's called Mustard. It's very similar to what's already down there, but maybe a little bit more of an ochre. And I'm going to use it to create some texture. If I kind of hold it sideways, and I just like to kind of scribble, but not too hard. But I'm trying to get some lighter marks, some darker marks. And the nice thing is that this pencil won't completely fade away, so some of the roughness from coloring it on will stay after I paint over it. So that's going to make for a nice background texture. Now I'm using the Core watercolor, QOR. It's a nice, bright, professional, light, fast watercolor paint. It does lift up a little bit. Sometimes I use the Derwent Inktense paints, and they don't lift up as much. But really drawing those splatters, kind of, it's not lifting up that much. So that's good. Okay, with this one I was thinking I want more contrast of color. With the other ones I've done so far, they've kind of been predominantly like a single color or color family, so like pinks and purples or blues and greens. I think I want this one to have more pop, more kind of contrast with the color. So I'm going to pull out one of my favorite Inktense pencils. It's one of my favorite colors. It's the name of the color is Shiraz. So just like the wine, it has a very dark reddish. There it is. You can tell I use it a lot. It's really tiny. I do have a new one that I bought, but I'm going to use that all the way up. But it's one of my favorite colors, and I think I've been using a lot of squares and rectangles, and I think on this one I want to work with some circles. I'm going to pull out my circle template and use some of these. So sometimes I just freehand circles and squares and other shapes, and then I have some templates that are always nice to play with too. So this Shiraz, whenever it's colored down, looks very brown. But then when it's activated with water, it turns to like a very kind of red wine color. But I'm not going to use plain water. I'm going to use a different way to activate it. And that will actually help create some more contrast. Let's get a smaller brush. So a few years ago, I found that actually there's a great color combination with this Shiraz. The nice thing with the water-soluble pencils is that as long as you have water, you can activate it and spread it around. So you don't have to use plain water. I like to use watercolor paint, and I'm going to use this yellow. Let me get rid of, it's got some green in it. Let me get rid of that. But this real bright yellow, what I found is that when it goes into the Shiraz is a bit kind of like it's a dark reddish, brownish, kind of burgundy color. And so when it mixes with that yellow, it blends very nicely. Now I do want to kind of rinse out my brush so that I don't really contaminate that yellow paint. So it looks like in the video it's showing up pretty red. It's kind of more brownish in real life, but I like that contrast between that yellow and that reddish brown. I really like the contrast in value, but then also that contrast with the colors. So I'm really digging the contrast, really digging the circles, but I kind of want to tie it together. I'm going to pull out. Let's pull out this square. There's this. Yeah. So I'm going to pull out my square template and my black pen, and I want to do a series of little squares. And the nice thing is that these are going to be really kind of thin lines right now. Maybe later I'll thicken them up. But I'm really just trying to think about something that will tie into the background. So I'm trying to trust my gut, trying to be intuitive with it, but at the same time I am trying to consider the layout, consider the structure of the piece. I think I want an even smaller square. So I'm going to pull out my plastic mesh that I've used the last couple of days. I'll use some bigger squares to kind of tie things to the edge. So the squares really help reinforce the square nature of the paper, but then the circles add some nice contrast. Let's think about some collage maybe. So I've got a pile of collage. I haven't really thought too much about what I might want to put in there. Alright, I just found something I want to do. Alright, so I was thinking contrast, right? So that Shiraz is kind of like a burgundy, kind of a dark reddish violet. And I pulled out, this is actually a violet piece of paper, a purple piece of paper. It looks a little bit more blue on the video. And I think that might be kind of interesting to use. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the collage in maybe a different kind of way. So oftentimes when we think about collage, we think about cutting out pictures or at least kind of like think about shapes, but we can also think about lines. And technically I'm cutting out a really thin shape, a real thin strip of the purple, but because it's so thin it will read as lines. I see my internet's acting up. Okay, at least that'll get me started. So this purple is really going to contrast. I mean, when we think about contrasting colors, you can't get any more contrasty than yellows and purples. Those are complementary colors. So those are colors, if we're looking at the color wheel, that are opposite each other. And they contrast each other. Okay. It's like I always feel like I run out of room so quickly on this. There. So my question, or my thought, is how do I want to use these? Do I want to reinforce the squares and rectangles, or do I want to try something a little bit different? Or maybe do both. I don't know. So the colored paper that I'm using isn't just ordinary construction paper. It's a high quality artist paper by Daler Rowney called Canford. It's kind of like a high quality construction paper. It's good for drawing on as well, but I love using it for collage. So I've got all these vertical and horizontal lines, and I kind of feel like I want something different. Maybe some diagonal lines. You know what if I had them kind of come off at this circle? It's a nice thing about collage is that you can kind of play around with the placement before you put anything down. Yeah, I think so. Why not? So as we're working, if you have any questions or comments or anything, just pop them into the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. So if you're working on something and you just kind of hit a snag, or you kind of wonder how I might deal with something, by all means, ask a question. So I had a question about the first layer. No, I just painted it directly. So the question is, um, did I wet the paper first before I put down the paint? And no, I just painted it directly on. I feel like I want some other kind of collage on there. So I've got this printout of some photos that I'd taken on many of my hikes here in Northern Virginia on the Appalachian Trail. So I'm thinking it might be really interesting to have a part, not the whole picture. And what I'm thinking is I have this circle here. So it might be really interesting to have something in that circle. Ooh, I like that. The nice thing is, since I drew this circle with this template, I can use the template to draw a circle so it'll fit. So these photos have been printed on a laser printer, and so that way if I get it wet, it's not going to bleed, it's not going to smear or smudge. So some folks have a color laser printer at home, but they're pretty expensive, and the toner cartridges are definitely expensive, so they're not common in houses, in homes, but a lot of businesses have them, and schools. But what I do is, if I don't have access to a laser printer, I just take a flash drive to Office Depot or Staples, and you can go over and go to their copy machines, and usually they have a place where you can plug in a flash drive, and then you can make however many copies you want. So usually it's like I'll have a whole bunch of things that I will want to print or make multiple copies of, and I'll go in and do a whole bunch of things. I don't think color copies are very expensive now. I like that. Now it's feeling very out of balance with the picture here and with all these dark kind of rays coming out. This is definitely the focal point, but then I kind of feel like it needs to have something down here to balance it out. So I'm thinking I need to have another picture. And then thinking about I'm going to use this size circle. So even with the collage pieces, I can really think about having them going to the edge. Yeah, see, that really helps to balance it out. I kind of feel like I want to have one little kind of semicircle or something over here. I'll make a nice triangular composition. Just kind of need to sit with it for a moment, kind of think about what I might do next. I feel like I want to have red in it because it's time for my trusty red pen. It's very geometric, so I just feel like I need to have some more organic lines in there. And if you've tuned in before, I've done something very similar. Actually, I think I may have done something similar yesterday. These kind of organic lines are, some of them are very map-like. Some of them look like roads or streams or things. The other thing is I like red a lot, and that also kind of ties in with the notion of the circulatory system, and thinking about blood vessels, but then thinking about blood vessels and arteries, and how we describe roadways as major arteries for traffic. I kind of like how thin those lines are, and I don't think I want to thicken them up. They just create a nice texture, but I do want some bolder red, so I'm going to pull out some of my punchinella, my sequin waste. So if you're not familiar with this, this is just, I got this a long time ago, but some folks call it punchinella. And it used to be sold as a ribbon. I don't know if you can still find it as a ribbon in craft stores, but I know that you can find it on eBay and on Etsy. People sell it. Punchinella. I don't know exactly how it's spelled or pronounced. I do know that if you type it in one way, it comes up with Punchinella is actually the name of the puppet from the Punch and Judy puppets. Some of you might be familiar with them, but so Punchinella is actually the full name, I think, of the Punch character. And so you'll see that a lot come up. But it's a great easy way to get some even circles. I think I want some going this way. So I think I want some bolder black lines. I mean, I have all these straight lines and squares, so I think I'm just going to pull out some of those. Just make them bolder, thicker. So I just drew in these bolder lines, and that helps create some structure. And I had a thought, like I want to paint. So I'm going to go back to some paint, see if this works. I'm going to use some yellow and paint in these shapes that I just made bold. Just a little bit of yellow. The yellow is pretty transparent. So the effect might be more subtle. Never know until you try. This is feeling pretty finished, but I'm going to use my white Uniball Signo pen. It's a white gel pen, and I'm thinking like some like little white dashed lines or something. think this is getting there. So just want to trim off this little bit that's overhanging. And I think I'm going to call this one done. All right. Well, it's getting close to that time, almost an hour in, and just really appreciate you all tuning in. And I know several of you have tuned in for more than a day or two. Some of you have joined in all 4 days so far. So hopefully you're getting some inspiration out of this. I'm just kind of making myself available, making this available for people to come and make some art, just to kind of dedicate maybe an hour. And if you can dedicate an hour a day, awesome. If it's if you miss a day or two, it's not like a challenge like, oh, I have to go back and I have to do them every single day. So join me when you can, and and if you miss one or two or whatever, it's not that big of a deal. It's just all about it's all about just trying to keep myself accountable, and by live streaming it, that kind of makes me like, okay, I've got to be there 4 o'clock every day. So the weekend's coming up. I don't know if I'll be able to live stream. I'm thinking I might be able to, but we'll see. And maybe it might be at a different time, but we'll see how busy the weekend gets. But I'll definitely be back on Monday. I know even here in the States we have Labor Day is on Monday, so it's a holiday, but I plan on being here on Monday. And so if I don't get a chance to live stream, I'm still going to do the hour worth of work. I'm going to do the daily challenge, but just not live stream it, and then I'll post the images of that. But if you got any comments or questions, please post them into the comments, and even if you think of something later, I pop on and try to respond to things. And even if I've answered your question in the live stream talking, I'll try to also answer it in the comments as well. So the other thing is, if you find this enjoyable, please share it with other people. Kind of the word of mouth is a great way to kind of let other people know. So if you're finding some inspiration in it, maybe others will too. So if you can like and share and comment, that's a great way to get more people to see these things. So really appreciate you being here with me once again. So if I don't see you over the weekend, I'll definitely be back here on Monday. So thanks so much.